Welcome. And we apologize to everybody for being a little bit late. What happened was we got into a heated discussion about awesome resolution ideas and future great activism projects that we could do for Californians who are not yet living the California dream. And we just got, you get a bunch of California activists together and we go crazy. So I'm sorry, we actually started the meeting on time, but we didn't hit broadcast because we were having a discussion. So apologies to everybody. We were here at 7 with Jason Wright and Robert Stark, but we got into a private conversation and then we go, oh my God, there's people waiting. Apologize to everybody. Thank you all for being here for the Resolutions Committee. This is the committee to propose resolutions where you can set the official word for Yes California. Yes California was started in 2014. It is the largest of all the CalExit organizations with a network of 160,000 Californians across multiple social media platforms and 400 reporters across America. What we have done recently in the creation of Yes California, we created a CalExit Congress where you and any Californian can join. In that Congress, we're allowed to propose resolutions on a variety of issues. This is new. And under my direction as president of Yes California, we were very pleased to be able to say that we're going to start having regular Californians say what the official word of the entire CalExit movement should be. Now, the pivotal arm that allows that to happen is the Resolution Committee here. Last week on the Resolution Committee, we discussed the idea of independence movements around the world and making tailored statements to each one of them. So independence movement, say in South Africa, we would make a speech saying how we as Californians feel about them. And then I would record a video, but the script would be designed not by me at all, but actually the Resolution Committee. So you can literally put words in my mouth and say, hey, here's this independence movement. Here's what we should say to them. And we'll make a video and it'll be literally what you want to say. And it'll be posted to the Yes California website, to the Yes California CalExit Congress website, which is linked to the Yes California website, making it the official word. So if you want us to say something, you want me to say something, you want Yes California to say something, you want to get an idea out to 160,000 people, this is the place to do it. You're literally looking at the bleeding center of where we make those sorts of statements. It's the resolution committees. Now, the main meeting is on Sundays at 12 to 2, or actually 11, I apologize, to 2. But the resolution committee is where we get into the real nuts and bolts. So Nicole E., sorry about that. Jack B., awesome to see you again. You guys were great. Nicole was pointing out, hey, hopefully you guys are starting soon. And I'm like, hey, we'll get there in a minute. And then Jack B's like, okay, yeah, that's funny. So we were starting on time. I'm sorry, but we just got into it. So good discussion. We were talking about different nation states and having resolutions designed for them. We will continue that conversation. It's an ongoing conversation. Our goal is to have a series.
Yeah, I do have. I didn't finalize anything, but I was taking some kind of rough notes about the different ones.
Which ones did we have? Do you remember, Robert?
For independence, a whole bunch of them. Caledonia, South Africa, Scotland. I think. Oh, you already did Scotland. But I'd say like maybe Caledonia, one for Caledonia, one for South Africa.
Yeah. Caledonia, and we already did Scotland, South Africa, maybe New Caledonia. New Caledonia is a French island that wants to be free, and they have an independence movement legally operating. I would say Hong Kong, but that's kind of a done deal now. I think we outlined a few others. I think maybe we were talking about, Jason mentioned Puerto Rico, if I'm not mistaken. There's some people want independence there. And I'm not sure. There was a few others, but yes. And if you think of any independence movements that are watching this, please let us know or post in comments. But yeah, and if you have statements that you'd like us to make to other independence movements, we would love to do that too. I'd also like to cover the Anglophone. So there's the English-speaking people of the African nation of Cameroon.
And so Cameroon, it's Mostly French speakers?
Yep. Except for one side of the country is all English speakers, and they're all like
And
clustered
have you
next to.
been? Are you in touch with them?
No, no. But they are a legitimate movement. Oh, and Jason has been a consummate light for the Afar people of Ethiopia.
Yes. So it's the Tigray.
Tigray.
My
Tigray.
friend is from the Afar region, but he is part of the Tigray people. So they've got like, multiple different regions in that area. Seems like most of northern Ethiopia. One of the places there is Afar, but they're actually it seems like the conflict now goes all the way to the border with Eritrea, which is the east, like towards Somalia. So it's getting bigger, and yeah, there's a group I have recently been trying to get some contact with. They are pretty much the exact type of nonprofit group that we look for when we say, hey, we want to partner up and do one of these, not an embassy cultural center things that we do, but we need a specific kind of group that's not like a government entity. Turns out that these folks are some of the leading activists of the Tigray in a similar fashion to how we are for California. They might not necessarily speak for everyone there, but they are one of the, seems like, loudest voices that's carrying the message. So hopefully we can get some contact with those folks, maybe invite someone to come and provide us a little more education on the history and what this is all about, what's going on, Also, don't forget ArtSoc.
There it is.
There was some conflict there recently with Azerbaijan. I'm not sure if it was ArtSoc with the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan. I'm not sure if it was major. It just seemed like a border. The recent incident seemed like a border skirmish. I'm not sure if it impacted ArtSoc.
No, it was definitely between ArtSoc and Azerbaijan, and it was definitely a war. There are actually still prisoners of war who are being tortured in Azerbaijani facilities, and their government is taking pictures and videos and sending them out with pride. Torturing prisoners of war is against the Geneva Conventions, by the way. Like, when the world decided Adolf Hitler and his ilk are bad and we don't want that in the world, yeah, well, that's what those folks are doing. And so ArtSoc, it is inhabited by ethnic Armenians. They are of Armenian descent. Some folks in ArtSoc will say that they are Armenian. Some will say that they are Artsakhi. No matter which way you look at it, the history is pretty clear that they actually have every full right under international law to be recognized as their own nation. And, they actually held a vote and it passed. Self-determination, like the only thing that's held it up is worldwide recognition, which is why we at Yes, we've been on that kick for a long time, because we know you have to have a decent portion of the world supporting it, or at least willing to support or unwilling to go head to head against. But yeah, at one point it was called Nagorno-Karabakh. That was when Armenia was a part of the Soviet Union, so long ago. And remember, they're like down towards the Middle Eastern area, right? The Soviet Union used to be humongous. Russia's really big, but like Soviet Union was huge. And one of the many countries that was under their jurisdiction was Armenia. And when there were some issues, there was a nation that was made, and it was called Azerbaijan. So a whole new country that did not exist before was made, and a lot of Armenia's land was given to them. There were skirmishes. People on both sides were not happy, right? There were skirmishes. It turned into war. People on both sides, actually, even people not even directly involved, but still part of the Soviet Union, were calling on their leadership to, bring a ceasefire, end the violence, start diplomatic discussions, figure out a real solution to this problem. After much debate and not really doing much of anything, it was ultimately then decided by the Soviet government that they would take most of that contested land and just give it to Azerbaijan. And when they did that, they took land from Nagorno-Karabakh area where its border met with Armenia. They took that land, that border land, and gave it over to this new country they made, which effectively cut off the people of Artsakh from their families, mothers and sisters, fathers, brothers, children, aunts, uncles, right? Grandparents, cut off. And, it's not like they could just walk through Azerbaijan into Armenia, right? And it doesn't work like that, especially when you're at war with someone. So it kind of spiraled downhill for a good while. Things kind of lessened up for a little bit, and then recently it's restarted, and funnily, not funny, haha, but the bad kind of funny. Funnily enough, the prime minister, or prime minister of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, he signed an agreement giving most of Nagorno-Karabakh to Azerbaijan, right? And again, he's not the leader of Nagorno-Karabakh. He's not the leader of Artsakh. He's the leader of Armenia, another nation, a different nation, which is along the same lines of America signing a treaty with Mexico, where Mexico gives America California, even though Mexico doesn't own California.
Awesome. Well said. Wow. That is...
I can't sell you Bob's car. It's Bob's car. If I try to sell you Bob's car, that's a felony. That's a crime. Just saying, people, come on.
You just tied two independence movements that span 200 years together. That's some impressive reading of political geopolitics. Wow.
Well,
Okay.
you know, I could also talk about Baja, which is another independence movement that we support and are working with.
Did you ever make a video for Baja?
We did.
Oh, we have the border. Yeah, the border resolution. We already did that.
So we did. Something was sent to me. I have not had any time to look at it. Let me take a look now.
Yeah, I mean, if you feel like it might be appropriate to screen share, and we could all have the first viewing together. How's that sound to you, YouTube folks? You want a seat at the first viewing of this video before it ever gets posted up to Marcus's channel? Sorry, Marcus, no pressure.
1 second here. I think he literally sent it to me directly. It's not actually published. Tell you what I can do. Give me 1 second here. I'm looking at this now for the first second. Yes, California recognizes that we Californians have a common origin with the rest of the Baja Peninsula. For a very long time, all of Baja and current-day California were one nation. That doesn't work at all, does it? Mexico and America from 1836.
I can hear the audio, but the visual's not so great.
How about this? Let me load this to YouTube. Give me 1 second here. Sorry, I am not good at multitasking. Okay, so I just sent this video to YouTube. In theory, if it loads on YouTube, I can then show it here. And I need to get back in touch with Cuauhtémoc and get a response to him about this video. So that's perfect that we're meeting. Okay. 1 second here. 1 second.
Yeah,
sorry.
No worries. Take your time. This is a nice little surprise. I remember you mentioned that it had come in, but we have been working on a book and several speeches, a resolution or two.
What's going on with the blog? Is there gonna be a blog feature on?
Yes. So we do have the ability now for people, if they want to write blog posts on popular news, I'm sorry, give me 1 second here. I can't multitask to save my life. Yes, you do have the opportunity to write an article on news articles and get that to us. So it has to be about something in the news.
Could I submit the existing ones from Substack that are relevant?
You can. I will tell you right now that what they're looking for, though, is a current news article and something directly tied to a current piece of news and taking a stance on that and then relating it back to independence. So the example they had was Joe Biden says nothing's forever in the Constitution. And he was speaking about some other issue, but we go, well, if that's the case, then that means you could also secede and you're open to that legal interpretation. So that was something controversial in the news, and we took kind of a unique stance on it. And so what happens is that people will look for that. You can submit whatever you want. That's typically what we're looking for. And I apologize for.
With submitting, I just forward you the text, or do I sign? Is there a place to sign into blog post, or do I submit it?
For now, just go ahead and submit it to me. I should have jumped on this more. Overwhelmed, wasn't able to. But yes, we're doing it, and yes, we want blog posts. Again, the idea is that it's got to be something that's in the news currently, maybe in the last week. And that people are somewhat talking about, and we go, oh, did this happen in the news? Well, that means this related to California could tell the federal government we don't care what you say, or we could be more independent, or some foreign government thinks of us as a nation, or our governor acts like we're more like a nation, anything like that. Just the trick is
the CDC just said, hey, you know what? If you're vaccinated, go ahead and ditch the mask. And California's government said, whoa, 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 that does not sound like a smart idea, dude.
Perfect. Yes, right there.
And that was just this week.
Yeah, so we're working on the recall debate, and that's going very well. That's eating up a lot of my time, but this is a great thing to do. Blog posting on news, just like Jason showed, is a great way to do it. So Robert, yeah, please submit stuff to me. Go nuts. I want to look at it. I apologize. I meant to promote that more. Yes, Robert, please send me some blog posts. I'm all over it. Okay, 1 second here. And I can show you the video. You're not going to be able to hear it because I don't have the speakers plugged in. I would have to plug the speakers in and then reboot the whole system in order to have them connected. I can at least visually show you the video.
I think the audio is pretty important.
Okay.
I'd say since it's posted up to your YouTube channel now, I know because I follow you and I got the notification. So since it's up there, anyone viewing this live or viewing this afterwards, feel free to check that out. That is our official statement of solidarity with Movimiento de Independencia de Baja California.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, I've been practicing.
I can tell. Let me at least play a second of it just to show people that it's up. If I may, with permission of the committee.
You got my permission.
Roberto, is that okay if I show the video just a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, this isn't going to happen. I'm not sure what's going on. I'll get that to the group and we'll go from there. Sorry. Okay, moving on. There is a MIBC Yes California joint promo video that was designed by people here in the movement in partnership with the Baja Independence Movement, and we had a script. I think Baja created a draft, sent it over. The resolution committee, especially Jason Wright and Robert Stark, looked it over intensely. We developed a lot of the scripting and fed it back to Cuauhtémoc. He was okay with it and fed it with the MIBC people, and then they pieced the whole thing together. And Cuauhtémoc, if you're watching this, I apologize for the delay. We've had incredible response to the recall election, so I've been trying to stay on top of that. Moving on. So we've covered the other independence movements. Jason, you don't have to. Do you want to talk about whatever's going on in Florida?
Yeah. I still haven't like, I haven't really delved in. I haven't actually physically looked at the piece of legislation, but I have a friend who this is very pertinent to, and she is the type that would have looked into it, and she is very worried by this. And it's not just her, but like, I can think of a number of parents who will not be happy about this, who actually might be kind of enraged by the prospects that such a piece of legislation presents. Talking about the transgender sports ban, the anti-trans bill, as some folks are putting it, given the stipulation about
It passed.
Further lead to the bullying. Yes, it passed. It was voted on.
When you told me this, I was like, that didn't pass. Oh my God, dude.
So this horrific piece of legislation, if you live in Florida, means that if you have children who attend Florida schools, they could legally be sexually assaulted by school employees, and you can do nothing about it legally. This piece of legislation allows for any sort of employee of the school to be able to suspect a child of being transgendered, and then to manually, personally perform an inspection of the child's genitalia. Yeah, you heard me right. Freaking pedo shit.
That's PG.
Yeah, I know. And there's nothing PG about pedophilia. And that's what I see this as, is someone out there wants a legal, valid reason to look at children's private parts. That's what this whole thing reeks of. And it passed. Now, it's been pointed out, a child does not have to actually be transgendered for this to happen to them. All that needs to happen is an adult who works for the school claims that they suspect. Now, I'm also, trying to think of this legally speaking. Unless the school has nothing but medical professionals, licensed, registered medical doctors, biologists, and such, unless the school is nothing but that, they have no place even trying to discern such a thing.
They're not medical staff. It says any staff, regardless. They don't have to be medical.
Exactly. And I'm saying, if the school is nothing but medical, then they have no place even thinking about this. You don't even have a biology degree, then what are you trying to do assessing biology? You're not a medical doctor, yet you want to medically assess a child? I mean, legally speaking, it should not have passed because it's not legal. You can't legally mandate sexual abuse of children, people. Come on.
Michelle Rayner, the only sitting gay person in the entire Florida House, said that it was basically the. Let me find the exact quote, so I'm not misquoting her. Said that it states. So Rayner is the only LGBTQ person in the Florida State House where this passed. One. They have one in the entire House. I'll remind everybody that the House is usually the larger of the two sides of government, the Senate being the other one. The Senate is always typically smaller than the House. The House is usually 2 to 3 times larger. So they have one gay person in the large group of the government in Florida. One. And this passed there. And the one LGBTQ person described this as state-sanctioned sexual assault against children. Not my words, hers. And apparently it's real.
Yeah, and I hadn't seen this article. I hadn't heard that, but that is the exact way that I put it. It's the exact read I had on it. So hearing that from an elected official makes me feel good that, okay, yes, I'm not taking this the wrong way. I do have a very accurate read on it. It is state-sanctioned, state-administered sexual assault of children.
I just heard about this today. I'm kind of shocked that I did because this is so ridiculous and it's been out at least over a month.
So these media sites, is this blatant in the headline, or it's more listed as like a fine print? Like how blatant are the news articles about this?
So I don't think it's law. I think it passed the Florida House. It has not passed the Senate and not been approved by the governor. So it's on its way. I think part of the reason we haven't seen a lot of news is because it's not technically the law. Although
I think because the governor is mentioned as a potential major presidential candidate, he might be under a lot of scrutiny about signing this bill.
Maybe, but
he could. I mean, half of the country could be for, with half of the country against.
Exactly. He's running as a conservative. He's running as the new Trump, even if he's not. And so I think he'd be happy to support something that pisses off LGBTQ people. To answer your question, though, here's just a look at how it goes. So here's law and crime. Florida House passes bill banning transgender women. Orlando Weekly. Florida passes anti-transgender bill. AP News even tones it down. Florida House moves to limit transgender sports. Florida Politics, which was kind of supporting the bill, goes, hey, we're passing this prohibiting transgender girls from playing. So you can see like a lot of these news agencies are going, this is a anti-transgender bill, or it's a bill to prohibit and help girls in sports. That's the people who seem to want to be taking a not a real strong stance against it or whatever. Now, if we go up and we go to LGBTQ backed organizations, Gay Times UK, LGBTQ Nation, Now This News Out, they're all specifically going, whoa, you can, I can't believe I'm saying this, inspect the genitals. I can't even believe this is happening. So the LGBTQ magazines are zeroing in on, hey, they're allowing children's genitals to be inspected. And I have to say, I'm a little bit shocked to see the AP News did not zero in on that, or Orlando Weekly, Law and Crime, or Florida Politics. So it seems if you're
I think a lot of them mentioned it, but it was kind of a side note or like...
Yeah, it was mentioned, but not...
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Side note.
I'll leave it up to you.
The fact that it's a side note when that is so horrific of a prospect.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, if I had children and I lived in Florida, I would no longer live in Florida and I would never return. Not because I think my children would be transgendered or LGBTQ, but because I would know for a fact that my children are not safe?
This is America, right? I mean, I understand it's not the law. It didn't pass the Senate. Maybe they'll do something there, but it passed the House. That's pretty bad. And as Robert zeroed in,
the fact that it ever could have made it even one step through the door says that there is gross ineptitude in the Florida government. They seem to have someone in there, at least one person in there, who doesn't seem to realize how illegal this is. Now, with California, right, I'll use us as an example here. A lot of people questioned the legality of our independence movement, right? And had it not been a legal thing, the state of California would have not approved our initiative.
Right.
Because it would have been illegal. And they would have said, hey, that would be illegal. You can't do that. And that would have been it. So here's Florida having something very, very clearly illegal. Like, there's federal law that could pertain to this. There's constitutional law that can pertain to this. And here's Florida, bastion of, we love America, where Donald Trump lives now.
It's true.
And we're supposed to take Florida seriously as legislative, leadership of the United States of America, when they clearly don't understand the law enough that they would allow this to make one single step at all.
We had a question from Nicole. Nicole, let me show you some information here. May I have permission of the committee to share the actual bill?
Please do.
Yes.
Okay. Just to respond to Nicole. So this is the bill, Florida House of Representatives, the bill House Bill 1475, entitled the Fairness in Women's Sports Act. Passed the State House on Wednesday, 77-40 vote. HB 1475, Women in Fairness Act. And this is the actual bill. Florida House of Representatives, HB 1475, a bill to be entitled an act relating to the sex-specific student athletic teams or sports, creating S 1006.205 FS, providing a short title, providing legislative intent, requiring that certain athletic teams or sports sponsored by certain educational institutions be designated on the basis of students' biological sex, prohibiting athletic teams or sports designated for female students to be open to male students, requiring that students, school or institutions as applicable, resolve disputes regarding the student's sex. That's probably the operational phrase there, or the action item. Requiring the school or institution to request a certain health examination and consent form or other statement from the student's health care to verify the student's biological sex under certain circumstances, requiring the State Board of Education to adopt rules requiring the resolution of such disputes, providing the protection for educational institutions from certain adverse actions taken by a government, providing protections for educational institutions from certain adverse actions taken by a government entity. That means they're going to be legally protected from lawsuits if one of these kids gets molested. Just saying. Any licensing.
That's what I was saying earlier, is that your child will be sexually assaulted, and legally there will be nothing you can do about it.
State Board of Education is going to solve all disputes, and educational institutions are to be protected by adverse actions. What do you think that's going to mean? Any licensing or accrediting organization or any athletic association or organization providing civil remedies for students and educational institutions, providing a statute of limitation, providing for the damages, providing for an effective date. Any licensing or accrediting or athletic providing civil remedies for students, providing a statute of limitation. Being enacted, here's short title, Women in Fairness Act, legislative intent. It is the intent of the legislature to provide opportunities for female athletes to demonstrate their skill, strength, athletic abilities, while also providing them with opportunities to obtain recognition and accolades, college scholarships, and the numerous other long-term benefits that result from success in athletic endeavors, and to promote sex equality by requiring the designation of separate sex-specific athletic teams or sports, designation of athletic teams, interscholastic, intercollegiate, blah, 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 males, men, or boys, females, athletic teams or sports designated for females, girls may not be open to students of the male sex. Dispute regarding a student's sex shall be resolved by the student's school or institution by requesting that the student provide a health examination and consent form or other statement signed by the student's personal healthcare provider, which must verify the student's biological sex. The healthcare provider may verify the student's biological sex as part of a routine sports physical examination by relying on one or more of the following: the student's reproductive anatomy, the student's genetic makeup. That means taking a swab, taking your personal property, your genetic data, and analyzing it. The student's normal endogenously produced testosterone levels. So that's doing a endochromatic examination or checking your fluid levels, basically.
Yeah, so it doesn't even specify any staff. It says any staff.
Yes,
not a medical professional.
And that's Robert. Thank you. Robert zeroed in right on that. Jason brought this to our attention, but Robert, good eye. Robert was the first one going, they're just saying staff. There's nothing like, it might be one thing if they go, okay, you can't have anybody do this examination if they have not passed a certified nursing board or a doctor's medical board. That might be something where you're limiting it to people who see naked people and have taken some sort of oath and some sort of training on, you know, we're expecting you to be respectable about this. But this doesn't say anything like that. So that's a red flag. Protection for government institutions, a government entity, any licensing or accrediting organization or athletic association or organization may not entertain a complaint, open an investigation, or take any other adverse actions against any school or public post-secondary institution for maintaining separate interscholastic, intercollegiate, intramural, or club athletic teams or sports for students of the female sex. Oh, so they're not...
Folks, the important part right there, they can't even entertain a complaint. So hypothetically, you send your daughter to school, she wants to play sports, some pervert running the softball team says, she's kind of cute. I suspect her of being a transgender. Let's take her back into the locker room so I can have a little alone time with her. And he does something inappropriate. Maybe he doesn't. I mean, that happening at all would be grossly inappropriate. But no matter what happens, if you file a complaint, legally, they can't even take your complaint. They can't listen to it. They can't entertain your complaint for 1 second. Meaning, there is absolute zero accountability. And you're gonna have to be okay with that.
The rest of this is basically a lot of protecting the agencies from lawsuits. So there you go. Florida House of Representatives, HB 1475 does in fact say any school or health official, unspecified, not necessarily a medical practitioner, if your child is suspected of being a secret male and is just suspected and trying to be on a girl's team, they have the legal right to request an inspection of their genitals. So,
well, and then the other point is that they don't say anywhere that they need to provide some sort of proof or probable cause. There's nothing like that. Literally, anyone could just say, I suspect that they're transgender. And then that poor child is traumatized for the rest of their life.
That would bother me. I remember getting exams from the nurses, and I was bothered getting naked, and my parents just go, well, that's a medical professional. Sorry, this is part of life. And I'm willing to accept that. Those are people who have studied medicine, and they take an oath. And I know some of them are bad people, but I think generally you're getting into medicine, you're trying to help. But these aren't anybody with that kind of training or oath taking or dedication. Who are these people? Should they be inspecting people? Should they be seeing them undressed? I don't know. We kind of have rules for doing this, right? We have that Hippocratic oath. We kind of have nursing schools and doctors' universities.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but usually when a teacher at a school requests or even mandates that their student get undressed in front of them, usually that teacher gets fired, gets charged with felonies, goes to prison because they're a sex offender.
This has all sorts of mischief attached to it. I don't see.
I'm just saying, like, you know, when teachers do this in the United States of America, we say that teacher is a sex offender, should not be a teacher, should not be allowed anywhere near children, and definitely not put into a position where children end up trusting them. And here's a bill that says pretty much the exact opposite.
That's okay. Wow, I never in a million years thought that would be a thing. Wow.
I'd also like to point out that given just how much protection and how far they go for protection for the schools and their staff, it screams that they know, beyond the shadow of a doubt, they know that this is going to not be perceived well, is going to cause trauma, and is going to lead to lawsuits. That says they know it's illegal, and they're pushing it anyway.
So I'm just going to point something out. May I have permission of the committee to share a screen? I think you may find this cool.
Yes.
Well, yep. You won't find it cool. You'll find it, I'm sorry, wrong choice of words. You will find it interesting. So I just typed in map of pedophiles in America by U.S. state. This, I mean, you know, it's California. We got crazies all over the place. I get it.
That's
I love it.
We have 12% of the entire nation's population.
This map looks like it's sheer numbers per cat. Oh, it is per 100,000 residents.
Yeah. So I'll just point out that in California, if I'm reading this right, we have like 198 per 72,000 people, and in Florida they're like 317 per 18,000 people, if I'm reading this correct. So right off the bat, the states in the dark green are heavy, full of pedophiles. So I'm not saying the whole place is. Certainly California's here. Certainly we have an issue. Certainly not all of us are that way. Of course not. Just kind of generally drawing patterns. Minimum registration duration of sex offenders. Here's Florida again, lit up. Let me show you a different one. I saw one early on. This one makes it look like Florida's hot off the charts for per capita. So just saying, There seems to be a pattern of a high per capita in comparison to all of America rate of pedophiles in Florida. Now, certainly I'm not saying, hey, everybody Florida's like that. We have a lot here in California. I'm not saying that. However, we didn't pass a law saying you can expect kids' private parts. So that's a little interesting that one of the 7 states out of 50 with a super high rate of per ratio of pedophile offenders, there's only about 7 out of 50 passed this law. Interesting. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, that is quite informative. And, I like to point out, yes, we have a lot here, but we have nearly 40 million people. So when you take the total population into account versus, say, Florida's total population and total population of sex offenders, well, then our number doesn't actually look quite so disgusting. Because, out of 40 million people, it's a small percentage. But it's 40 million people, so any percentage of it is going to be a considerable number of people total. But Florida is not super densely populated. Florida doesn't have 40 million people.
Yeah, certainly I don't want to say something that we don't verify it by facts, so I don't like it when people do fast and loose. I'm not going to go into the specifics, but there definitely does seem to be, including California, to be fair, Florida's one of a handful, minority, less than a fifth of all states with a huge pedophile population. And they passed this law, which kind of allows any theoretical school administrator to do things that you would get you arrested and beaten up in California. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, and in nice, calm, peaceful California, you would still get beat up for that.
You get your there's certain things. We are generally hippie place, but there's a few things you get your ass beat. You can't walk around going, Hitler had some great ideas. What? I joke about that, but there's certain things you can't walk around and say here in public. And no, I don't think that's a threat to democracy. They're kind of ignorant things people shouldn't be saying anyways. It's not. I don't mean, you can't climate change. I doubt the science. Yes, you can say that. You're not going to get hurt in California. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about real hardcore stuff.
Yeah,
okay.
Talking about like if you're going around physically committing sexual crimes against children, it kind of doesn't matter where you are. You're probably going to get beat up for it, depending on where you are in the world. Some places.
Yeah, or you say something, discriminatory against LGBTQ or disabled people or ethnic groups. It's really not going to go over well here. So I don't support violence, but I certainly get living in a place where people are like, we're not doing that here. You can go somewhere else and speak like that. So let's get to the last section. I know it's delicate. I don't want to make a huge deal about it, but it would be remiss to say nothing. So if I may have permission from the heads of the committee, I'll make a short statement.
Okay.
You guys can say something or not say something. It's a highly charged issue. I'm saying something because we need to say something. But I don't want anybody to feel like...
Is this about the conflict in the Middle East?
Yeah.
In Israel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So may I have permission to make a short statement?
Yes.
Utmost diplomacy. Yes, sir.
So, thank you. I'll be honest, it was not an issue that I was super enthusiastic to address, simply because my worst concerns have been realized. I've been talking to a lot of the Cal-Exit movement about this, and there is a variety of opinions and very strong opinions. And I've been asking around. We have many Jewish members. We love them. Jewish people are part of California. I love the fact I think we're the 5th highest settlement for Jewish people. And we'd be 4th if New York wasn't there. So, okay. Just saying. It's like Israel, France apparently has a ton. And then I think it goes maybe New York and then us, something like that. So, but we also have a lot of Muslim people. We have a lot. And we have some Palestinian people. I personally know a couple different Palestinians. For some reason, they like the valley. I don't know why. But you run into them. Good people. And they, too, are part of our culture here in California. And at the same time, I have seen many different activist organizations who were taking on a righteous cause destroy themselves by saying, well, we have to address this other issue. And if we don't, it's super horrible. My go-to example is Occupy Wall Street. Now, Occupy Wall Street was gaining a lot of traction. And they were going to get some regulations passed on banks that have never existed in American history. Instead, what they did was the members who were LGBTQ said they wanted a strong statement on LGBTQ rights. The rest of Occupy wasn't okay with that. They turned on each other. There was a lot of, well, you're a bigot and horrible this and that. And then they ripped the whole thing up. And then we had our second massive bank bailout, printing of currency with no regulations that just happened this year. And nobody from the 2008 recession has been put behind bars, and nobody was punished. And the Glass-Steagall Act that allowed it was still allowed into law by Obama because no one called them out. So there's been no regulations, no punishment, nothing done to change the banking situation from the Occupy Wall Street thing. And now we're going into the second cycle. So for me, that's failure. I certainly am for LGBTQ rights. They were sacrificed, and now we have nothing. We have nothing for bank regulation, nothing. Because they said, oh, well, we have this good issue, we have to do this and that and this and that and this and that and this and that, and if we don't do all those things, we can do nothing. Guess what you get? Total failure. So we have taken it on to say that this organization is about California and California values, which includes bringing everybody in, making bridges to all cultures and all peoples, and recognize our diversity, but also recognizing California could do better independent, and that we don't want to be like America and we'd have our own foreign policy. So there's a lot mixed in, and I've been thinking very hard, talking to Jewish members, talking to Muslim members about how do we make this work? And I spent a lot of time with Jason. Jason's been very educational for me. I think we're going to have to leave it with a simple statement that California loves all of the nations, and it always wants to be a partner in dialogue with all nations to help everyone come towards peace. So we're not necessarily taking a stance on who did what to who. We're saying that we believe in continued dialogue, we believe in peace, we believe that Californians, our duty is to stay in dialogue with all partners and to encourage all of them to come to some sort of peaceful resolution. That is what I think is the best statement we can make at this time, being respectful to all of our Jewish members, all of our Muslim members, and staying within the approved guidelines passed by you all for what the Yes California can be. And I will leave it there.
Yeah, so that was very well said. Thank you, brother. I notice that California overwhelmingly does not support the death penalty because we overwhelmingly, for the majority, we value life. We hold it sacred. We also care enough about children that it doesn't matter if someone's breaking a law or not. Putting children in cages is never the answer.
Right. Right.
There are myriad issues that Californians stand on a certain side of, and that side is based in compassion and mercy and kindness and justice and peace. California is very famous, overwhelming majority, anti-nuclear armament. Because that's just a whole lot of death. I mean, if a bullet can kill one person and a bomb can kill many, nukes is just horrific.
Yeah.
So my frame of mind is there are children, there are people dying, some of whom are children, being blown to smithereens by bombs and artillery and missiles. And it's a horrific thing to have to think about. It's knowing that this is going on right now. I mean, I was torn up about children being put into cages like rabid animals because I was cast aside as a child. I was discarded, and I was a ward of the state of California for many a year. And I lived in state-run facilities, right? I can only imagine how things would have turned out had it been in Florida. But I'm bummed. But back to being serious here. I was that torn up about children being put into cages. So do the math, and it's not rocket science. Do the math and think about how torn up I am right now on the inside, knowing that children are being blown to smithereens by bombs, artillery, and missiles. I would also point out, in all fairness, right? Because I don't want anyone to think that I'm, saying one thing about one side and not the other. I'm not saying nothing about no one specific. I'm saying there are children dying in the world, and not just in the Middle Eastern area, not just in Gaza, Israel, Palestine, right? But all around the world, there are children who are dying of starvation, from murder, being kidnapped and sold into slavery. If we don't all come together as humanity, as decent human beings, and protect the children who are literally the future of humanity. People don't live forever. No one does. Nothing's forever. Those children will one day be adults and be, hopefully, not so emotionally scarred that they, might be able to help lead and, create new progressive changes and lead humanity further along a path of growth and success and prosperity, right? And this sounds very altruistic, but ultimately, this is kind of where most of the world's nations are heading. Most of the world has already come out and said pretty much what you just said, Marcus. Not going to say bad Israel, not going to say bad Palestine, just going to say that we would all like to see the fighting stop. We would like to see some, discussion. We want a solution to this very serious, very real problem. And, I really, really hope if yes, California can at least add our voice to the collective voices calling for peace and sanity, at least for the children's sake, then we will have at least done something right. I would really, really like to see California's government, current elected government, add the voice of California to the call for peace. Unfortunately, the United States of America is unwilling to allow its voice to call for peace, but that doesn't mean that we can't. And really, given our movement, I think that means that we should. The United States is unwilling? Fine, we'll be the voice. That's what I'd like to see, because ultimately, my thoughts are with the children.
This is a website used by journalists where they map tweets. So this is not necessarily a pro-Israel or pro-Palestine thing. This is an International Reporter website that just automatically feeds tweets.
Did you get the link I sent?
1 second here. Yeah, give me 1 second here. Hold on. The computer.
Yeah, even Senator Bernard Sanders, possibly one of the most prominent Jewish legislators in American history. Also, one of the most beloved. He actually even made a very similar statement of, violence is violence, and it's never a pretty thing, and let's end it. And by the way, American taxpayers are shelling out hundreds of millions of dollars every year, and it's feeding this conflict, and it needs to stop. And that's Senator Bernard Sanders. God, I love that guy.
So the Biden administration is backing the government of Benjamin Netanyahu, which is a alt-right, not alt-right, but it's a very conservative administration. That's not an opinion piece. That's just generally how it is. So while this is going on and there's a lot of bombs and people being blown up, the U.S. government says, let's give Israel $735 million in more weapons. Just saying. And that's raising red flags for some House Democrats who are part of the shifting debate over the U.S. government's support for the Israeli government. So while this is going on, here's extra money. Also want to point out a correction. A previous version of this article stated that the United States supported an immediate ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. In fact, the White House initially said it would only support a ceasefire if both parties to the conflict chose to pursue one. So the Washington Post is saying, we're sorry for saying that America said there must be an immediate ceasefire. What we meant to say was America says it will only support that when both parties agree. Well, basically that means whenever Israel agrees. So sorry for saying America said, hey, Israel and Palestine, knock it off. What we meant was America will do it only when Israel says it's cool. I'm not hyperbolizing. This is the Washington Post. Here's the article. Here, they printed a correction right at the beginning of their article. That's what that means.
Well, and for the World Court, I would like to point out the conflict of interest, massive conflict of interest. Benjamin Netanyahu was born in New York. He's an American. You have an American citizen over there leading this nation that America is now backing in this war?
And it's supposed to be neutral. And then at the same time,
exactly,
America is blocking.
And America is on the UN Security Council and is the one and only part from that council that has blocked any sort of statement calling for peace. And come to find out, well, it's his own citizen who answers. I mean, if Benjamin Netanyahu was born in New York, he's an American, and as an American, who is his president? Joseph R. Biden.
Yeah. I do just want to point out, just to be fair, a lot of people getting hurt on both sides. This map shows, so these circles are where the Jewish people had to run and flee and hiding because rockets were coming in indiscriminately. The targeting systems of Hamas are not super great, even if they did care. And so these rockets just come in and they blow up anything in the area. You can see the variety of circle dots. Those are all rocket attacks coming in through various...
an important little semantical note, the difference between a rocket and a missile is rockets are unguided. Missile means it's the rocket, but it has a little computer system in there that tells it exactly where to go. But that's also why rockets are banned under the Geneva Convention, because they are known as an indiscriminate weapon.
Here's these things also show rocket attacks coming in. Now, to be fair, these bombs are Israeli warplanes dropping a bomb. So rocket attacks, these people living in fear. If you're here, there's a bomb blowing up your house. So it's give and take right now. I'm not saying anything other than there's a lot of people getting hurt. Bad.
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of people dying. There are a lot of children who are suffering.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because what was it in World War II? I remember being told about the heroism of the soldiers and the bravery of facing death. That was not, and that's true. But that was nothing compared to the civilians. The civilians faced even worse horrors. So soldiers had training. They had equipment. They had a weapon to fight back. They had some idea. Civilians got bombed and shot at and had no training and no equipment. And when you look at the death toll in World War II, it's like 3 times as many civilians as soldiers, or 10 times, depending on the conflict. So in any conflict, take however many Israeli soldiers or Palestinian Hamas dug-in fighters, and then multiply that by 3 or 10, and that's how many kids and women are going to get shot, or old men. That's just war, especially in urban areas. Now, maybe this isn't World War II where they're going, our army drove off into the field to meet another army in the field, like Braveheart, where all the soldiers go, okay, we're soldiers, and we're leaving the urban center and going to this far-off field. And
this isn't the Battle of Hastings.
Right, yeah. And then so it's sad, but everybody dies is a soldier who says, I'm a soldier and I'm trained and I'm equipped and I'm going into this. Now what we have is there is no set piece separate battlefield. It's the soldiers meet in the city. Folks are going to get hurt. Kids, women, old people, people who can't fend for themselves. And they're going to get hurt worse. And if it goes on long enough, the services get cut. That's why I've always said, if you're going to fight a war, be brutal right away and win. Because you're doing more of a disservice to everybody by continuing that war. Civilians die the longer wars go on. Food runs out, water supplies get poisoned, services start to fail apart, people can't get hospitals. So however many people you're laying out in the actual invasion, it's better to get it over and done with right away, because massive amounts more people die from starvation, disease, unexploded mines.
Yeah, because during war, the government usually puts number one priority on the military and defense, and, the forces and not on its civilians.
Because they're trying to win. They're in it to win. So I hope the conflict ends soon. However it goes, I hope it ends soon. The longer it drags on, there will be more people who can't help themselves who are going to die from preventable causes.
Well, and we're also, that article that I shared this morning, Iraqi military willing to go and fight on behalf of the Palestinian folks. And, this means other nations getting actively involved in the war.
It could de-escalate a full-blown regional war.
Yeah, at the very least, I see a regional war happening, if not world, because it kind of doesn't matter where you are in the world. Like, you go anywhere in the world and you talk about Israel, Palestine, and you're going to find at least one person who's happy and at least one person who's angry, just because you brought it up. So I could actually really see this as the catalyst for World War III if they do not de-escalate right now. And again, America choosing to not de-escalate.
Here is that article. So the U.S. is blocking the UN resolution for a ceasefire. It and Israel are the only two countries doing that. It appears as though the rest of the world is ready for some sort of UN statement saying stop the fighting, and America is continuing to block that. So take that for what it's worth.
It is the only voice that's holding it up.
Yeah.
This is the guy who was the return to decency, by the way.
Yeah. So that's let's see if we can find that. Iraq.
I'm wondering how many people wish that they had voted for Bernie now. I mean, he's already proven he's reasonable. He's Jewish, and he even took a reasonable stance.
During the general election, there was all this campaign to basically shame Bernie supporters into voting for Biden and like attacking personal attacks against them if they were hesitant.
Yeah, well, and that lady just got appointed. She didn't pass her Senate confirmation, so then they just picked another position for her that doesn't need any sort of confirmation, just appointed her to it.
I will point out, just to be fair, so this is in Iraq. I'm still looking for the article on the Iraqi government saying they'll help, but here's the Iraqi Sadr militia. Muqtada al-Sadr was the highest-ranking Shia militia leader in Iraq, and he was never actually defeated. He basically was given a lot of power and asked and bought off, so he went. So look at some of his supporters. The guy has tons of Shia militia fighters. Many of them trained in Iran and are tied to Iran groups. So when the U.S. was there in the Battle of Baghdad, Sadr took all his followers into Iran and they trained them for a year and then they came back. So these guys are hardcore IRGC trained militia without super strong ties to the government, all saying, according to this article, death to Israel. Scary stuff.
Yeah, and now that's a great point. So the extremism is the thing that's just, it's the thing that's killing everyone. The extremism. Because the group that says, hey, yes, we will go to bat for you, that also says, death to Israel, right? Well, saying you'll go to bat for someone and you'll be the champion of their cause, not necessarily a bad thing. The moment you make it about destroy and wipe out an entire people, they are the enemy. Like, as a predominantly Germanic-blooded person, I can't help but think of World War II and what would have happened, and the fact that I would not be here today, most likely, if, the Allies had that stance. Hey, you know what? Germany's the enemy. Just wipe them all out. In fact, all Germanic folk, right? Because it's so hard to tell them that they speak German too over there in Austria, so we'll just take them all out. And it's a very dangerous way of thinking. It's a very dangerous way of being. And it just leads to more conflict, more chaos, more death. And what we need is peace, sanity, rationale, right? We need, I remember a point in time before Netanyahu, there was someone who was in power in Israel who was actually working very closely with the leadership of Palestine, and it seemed like
Can you post a link
there
to that
was about to be a permanent peace between the two. Like, there were discussions about, sharing varying holy sites, right? like some folks on the Israeli side were unhappy with the thought, and they made it known. And some folks on the Palestinian side were unhappy with the thought of sharing their sacred holy site, and they made it known. But the majority between both parties was peace. And they would have actually had it had both of those leaders not been assassinated.
That's the thing. So you have the Sadr militia in Iraq saying where you stand with Palestine, and then you have the Iraqi government, which is basically a Shia-Iran government with lip service for the other ethnic groups, saying we back Palestine. And then you have Iran saying, hey, Iraq, that's great, you back Palestine. Fine. But you also add in the phrase, death to Israel. And nobody criticizes that. You couldn't say, hey.
Yeah, everything up to those last words there was totally fine. No problem with it. But those last words they sink the whole freaking ship.
That's what I'm talking about.
They do more damage than good.
That's what I'm talking about. You couldn't have said, and this is the thing, the Iranians have a lot of influence over Iraq. They could have said, hey, right on Iraq, we stand with the Palestinians, good people, give some Islamic flowery verse, and left it there. Or said,
I have to go. I have to go now.
Yeah. Well, let's just wrap it up. So,
okay.
Jason, Robert, closing statements, and Jason closing statements, and we'll just call it a day.
Yeah, we didn't really work specifically on resolutions. We talked about a lot of really crucial issues from what's going on with that bill in Florida, which definitely could be dangerous, very dangerous. And it's important to bring light to that. We talked about the war in the Middle East and taking a stance, and how things are getting dangerous there, could escalate into a full-blown war. So yeah, we did cover a lot of things, and next meeting I'd like to further up with past work, past things we were going over about the speeches and support for other movements, and then also the civil liberties measure on the Biden administration. So I'm Robert Stark, joined here with Jason Wright and Marcus Ruiz Evans, and I officially close the meeting.
Okay. I'm going to do it I'll close it. Thank you, Robert. Jason, last minute comments, and then that'll be it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Next week we should come in, get back to business that we were dealing with. We're talking about this all this week because this stuff is coming up, and
it's important.
You know,
it's important. It's important.
But yes, definitely next week. Let's get those statements at least rough drafted and go over them, and then whatever we decide on, we can move from there. Like as far as present it to Congress for approval, you know. And I would also like to. Oh yes, Nicole. Let me also. I was going to say another thing, but first, more importantly, let me give a shout out to our viewers, Nicole, Jack B, anyone else who's watching. I'm sorry I haven't been monitoring the comments too closely, but thank you for tuning in. Was that Rizak?
Riza.
Yeah.
Riza, Nicole, okay. Jack B.
Yeah. So all three of you, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for, being willing to learn about such scary, horrific, deep, yet important issues. I firmly believe that if we don't all have that willingness to tackle these issues, learn about them, and then tackle them, that they definitely will never get solved. So, thank you. And then my final statement will be, I personally would like for Yes California to make a statement of, wishing for peace, or de-escalation, peace, whatever, we can draft something up, right? But I think that should be added to the list of statements that we need to make.
I'll propose it Sunday.
Yeah, and Robert, as co-chair, do you agree or disagree? Would you approve of Marcus bringing that up on Sunday?
Yeah. Which one in particular?
Just a general statement that we want peace.
I won't be able to make the meeting Sunday, but I approve of that statement.
Okay.
Perfect. Big man hams, right on.
Oh yeah. There we go.
So I will propose that Sunday. I also want to point out, guys, I know, usually we're very process focused, but we always said we'll talk when it's key. And I got to say, I've been watching the comments. There's some people very impressed with the conversation the two of you had. They thought this was a high level, detailed conversation. So our respectability goes up. You know me, I'm a driving force, and I'm sorry for being a ASS sometimes on getting projects done. I'm just very performance driven, and I love you all for putting up with me. But this was a great conversation. It was kind of a beautiful dialogue, and there's a place for that too. And I think people will really appreciate that. So you two did a great job ripping apart modern day stories and really breaking down what's going on. And I think people saw it. I was just watching the comments while y'all talking, because, and I don't always post them up because y'all are going, but people were impressed with the level of dialogue here. It's worth noting.
And yes, Jack, at 11 on Sunday. And anyone, Sunday, 11 a.m., 11 in the morning, Pacific time. If you wish to, you are invited. And, we really do thoroughly enjoy having more people attend and participate. So please, feel free. Feel welcomed.
Okay. I'll go to commercial. Is that okay? And we'll end it.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Hey, Jason, stick around for a second, bro. Is that cool?